Welcome to In the Balance, the podcast to help you build your dream team of experts to make your financial goals a reality.
Look at everyone, how you going? Phil Tarrant here, and you might be wondering, what's going on here? Why is Phil on another podcast? There must be something afoot. Well, I telegraphed this some time ago, and for many years, I would say nearly a decade now, I've been protecting my accountant from the property investment sector because I'm a selfish sort of guy and I want to make sure that I get all the best advice before everyone else. But finally I persuaded him to come out. And a lot of people will know my accountant because he's been in and around property for quite some time. And on the Smart Property Investment Show or the Property Investment Podcast Network, no doubt a lot of the listeners may use this same accountant because they've tuned into my discussions with him occasionally. I reckon I've probably only ever spoken to him on air 4 or 5 times, but he seems to have a lot of clients in and around property investment. So I take that as a good thing because having been a property investor for well over a decade, having worked in and around property and accounting and financial service for nearly 15, what is clear to me is that we're very fortunate in Australia that we have a cadre of professionals that support Australians through wealth creation. And I don't know any Australian that doesn't want a better life tomorrow than what they have today. And largely that's driven through your ability to create wealth. And different people have different views towards wealth. Someone's perception towards wealth might be a happy, comfortable relationship where they don't have a mortgage anymore. Other people's view towards wealth may be a large property portfolio that provides a whole bunch of passive income, which means they don't have to work anymore. Other people's idea of wealth is private jets and fancy concert tickets and dining in the best restaurants of the world. So everyone has a different view to wealth. And I've met many people over many years who I would say are extremely wealthy. I know a lot of people who are wealthy, and I know people who are just comfortable. And it's irrelevant what your view is. It's a DNA point. It's unique to you, and you should be happy with your own capabilities. But one commonality I've seen from all people who have taken a proactive focus towards wealth and wealth creation and achieving those goals or whatever wealth means to them is that they have very good advisors around them. I'm not going to put myself into that boat. I've made plenty of mistakes over many years, and you would have known about them. You've been tuning into the podcasts that I run. But universally, the most capable property investors, particularly I've seen, are those that surround themselves with very smart advisors. And there I'm talking about mortgage brokers and buyers agents and conveyancers or lawyers and accountants and financial planners. So finally, I've persuaded my accountant to come on to start a podcast series with me, which we're going to do over the coming 12 months. And that's Munzurul from KHI Partners. But it's just not Munzurul at KHI Partners. It's quite a large firm. And when a lot of people actually find out about the depth of KHI Partners, they go, wow, I didn't actually know. And Munzurul, as a founding partner of that firm, has had a steady and guiding hand to the growth of that firm. But there is someone else inside of KHI Partners that many of you have not heard of, and that's Trevor, the other founding partner. So I've also got him to come on the podcast. We're creating a new podcast where we're going to talk about wealth creation. We're going to be talking about how you can go about making informed decisions so you can go down a pathway of creating whatever your version of wealth is. For many of you, it will be through the lens or for the vehicle of property, but there's a whole bunch of other ways we can do this. We're going to get into accounting. We're going to get into finance. We're going to get into strategy. We're going to get into structure. We're going to get into all of those things that you need to do in order to be a smart and capable investor. Gentlemen, welcome to the show, Munzurul and Trevor.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, it's very good, Munzurul, and thanks for coming out of the shadows and having a chat with me. And we discuss and get together quite frequently. As my accountant, you've got to struggle with my finances, which is relatively straightforward. I'd say maybe more complicated than most, but not as complicated as probably some of the other ones that you've seen. Hence the reason why I need a good accountant. I've been fortunate to have met Trevor a number of times over many years, and I'm very conscious and aware of the very important work he does in KHI Partners. So Trevor, I look forward to learning more about you and understanding how you go about the very important role as a professional, but also how you put up with Munzurul sometimes. And maybe we'll get all the stories. But the idea of this podcast is we're going to have a series of conversations around a number of different facets and elements of wealth creation. particularly using property as that vehicle, but I am very conscious that a lot of our listeners will be self-employed business owners, and they represent a large cohort of the KHI Partners client base, people who are out there in business dealing with all the trials and tribulations of doing that. And I know you're very capable as a firm for supporting the self-employed, those who are running small and medium-sized businesses, but, you still look after the PAYG people as well. So very broad remit for us. And I've been thinking over the last couple of months as this idea has been incubated, Munzurul, what do we call this? What do we call this? And you know me pretty well, and I'm comfortable talking about or being in and around financial terms and concepts and accounting terms and concepts. So I actually have been to the home of accounting in the UK, where the international standards are put together on accounting study tour once. So I'm happy in and around accountants. Would I necessarily say I like accountants? I like the outcomes that they have, and sometimes they bamboozle, bewilder me. But I've been thinking about what accountants do as a way for us to shape a name for this. And I know that KHI Partners, I like and I appreciate and I subscribe into the ethics of your firm.
Thank you.
I like the way you go about doing business, hence the reason why I'm happy to be a client and say that I'm a client of yours. And I know you orientate the firm and all of your partners towards how you can actually contribute to someone's life, and a very important role of accountants in doing that, whether it's just on tax and compliance matters or it's more towards the strategic side of things. But I get that, and I've been sort of toying with it, and I've thought about, and I'm happy with where I've landed with this. When you look at how an accountant helps you make decisions, they'll look at risk and reward, and some accountants will look more towards the risk side of things, and some accountants look more towards the reward side of things. But, and I've said this many times, the best investor makes informed decisions based on the information they've been able to access from people who are in the know. And this is how I make my decisions. And largely, not all decisions are easy, not all decisions are straightforward, but in the balance of things, I always make the right decision.
Yeah.
And that's because I absorb and I interrogate and I synthesize all the information I have. So I'm going to put it to you guys that we call this podcast In the Balance. And that's with a bit of a nod also to the accounting side of things. You like to balance the books. That's what accountants like to do. And I know our friends at ASIC and the tax office will be tuning into this as well. And I'd like to acknowledge their involvement and participation. And this is another way in which we can help educate Australians around the ethical way for the proper accounting. So are we okay to stick within the balance? Trevor?
Very good. I like it.
You like it?
Yes.
Abby? Munzurul, we've got yours. Do we got to put this to an audit committee, or are we okay?
No, but I absolutely love it, because when we do the return and when we do any of the compliance level of the work, is that our view is that everything would be reviewed and audited by some statutory authority at any point of time, right? And anything which we sort of say that, well, at a risk level that perhaps it's not going to be passed, we don't do it, right? But at the same time, as you say, that many of the decision in life is that it's a decision of pragmatism. It's a decision of balance. And it's about pros and cons. It's about knowing these are the positive, these are the negative, and then knowing what is my circumstances. And when you use the word synthesizing, it's about synthesizing those information and customizing it on your individual basis. And all of those things is that we are constantly speaking about balance and balance and balance, right? Some of the things are non-compromising, which is staying within the rule, but the pragmatism is what we do.
It's a tough world we all operate within, because I'm someone that likes to try and control outcomes, and I know you are someone, Munzurul, who likes to control outcomes, and that's a very considered thing to do. But we're both very aware, and we acknowledge the fact that there's many things in life you can't control. There's many things in life you can't control if you're investing in property or investing in other asset classes. So you need to orientate yourself within them, and you need to be comfortable of your ability to maneuver or adjust your strategy in line with an evolving marketplace that you can't control. And it's really recognising that often you can't make decisions in a bubble. You've got to make decisions with the information that you have around you. Pilots call it situational awareness. And I know the best accountants are able to give that to their clients, and I would echo the work that you've done for me for many years. You'll give me all the information I need to know to make a balanced decision.
Sure.
And if your accountant's not doing that for you right now, maybe you're with the wrong accountant. But it's incumbent on you as the investor, it's incumbent on you as a person that signs off your tax returns that you're happy with what they say and the picture that you present. Yes, your accountant should be helping you put that together and structure that and formulate that for you, but you need to be responsible for it. It's one of the many important things that I see with a lot of people in this space, that they try and outsource these things. It comes back to the value of good advice. You need to orientate yourself with all the information you have to make informed decisions. So In the Balance acknowledges that it's not always easy. In the Balance acknowledges that there is uncertainty all the time. In the Balance reaffirms the fact that you don't always get things right and timing is always different. Your situation could be changing, but what you can control in many ways is your values and your ethics and those building blocks to help you with your decision making. And these are one of the things I'd like to chat with you guys over the coming 12 months. So lots for us to cover, guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look forward to it.
How did KHI start, Trevor? I want the real story because I've had the sanitised view from Munzurul for many years. I hear your brains behind the operation.
Here's the brain.
Yeah. We're not very creative people here. And I guess KHI came from the simple fact that our surname ended in Khan and How incorporated. So we said, look, why don't we just use the acronym KHI?
Makes sense.
That's what came about, basically. Yeah.
So how long have you guys known each other for?
Probably 25 years or more
Yeah,
now.
at least.
I graduated from Sydney Uni and we worked at BDO. We met at BDO.
You guys ex-BDO, are you?
Ex-BDO
we were young and
staff. We separated ways for a couple of years where I went commercial and I think Munzurul went to PwC. And then we caught up after that and fate brought us together.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you've been working together in some sort of partnership now for a couple of decades, is that right, Munzurul?
That's right. I mean, the whole group, we started around 16 years ago, right? And then the original entity was the KHI Chartered Accountant and KHI Proprietary Limited. That's how we started. And Trevor was the first partner joining. And I think Trevor literally in second year, third year that Trevor sort of joined. And then over a period of time is that we've got other partners sort of join, other service sort of added, and the team sort of grew. But the base of that team sort of remained between Trevor and myself in many different ways. It's a partnership. So we have 24 partners and we provide 5 services. We are accountants, financial planners, bookkeepers, mortgage brokers and lawyers. And each partner has his or her own bit of the client group as such. So while they work independently, we still work at the same time together as partnership as a joint.
And that's as the KHI partnership.
That's right.
And I would probably know 5 or 6 personally of your partners.
Sure.
And I've used them for different things over different years. So let's go through it again. So financial planning.
Accounting. Bookkeeping.
Yes.
Mortgage broking.
Okay.
And law.
So pretty much most things that most people need as a professional relationship.
And Phil, why we love it is that we've got different offices. So we've got 4 offices in New South Wales and 2 offices in Queensland and some overseas. And our model is that each one of those offices will have all of those 5 services. So if we look through our Parramatta office as an example, we've got 2 accounting partners there. We've got 2 mortgage broking partner there. We've got a legal partner there. We've got a financial planning partner there. We've got a bookkeeping partner there. So there's a lot of things what it does. Number one is that if I look back from my colleagues' point of view, from the staff's point of view, is that while they're listening to each one of those partners, there's just this incredible level of knowledge which goes around in between all the different partners, and they listen to all of those and they're learning. From us as the individual partner side of it is that we're learning from each other, right? So if there's something comes in with legal, as an example, in our office, we've got Michael, and Michael will come in into a subsequent. So I go to Michael, and Michael gives me very specific legal advice. He's the lawyer, right? And if it comes into some of the shares and managed funds as such, which is not my strength, I go and see James, as an example, who's a financial planner and absolute expert on sort of shares and managed funds. If it goes to finance, is that in our Parramatta office, we've got Janine, we've got Aaron, and they're doing the finance. And Gary, as an example, he's doing the bookkeeping services. So having all of those 5 services under the same roof and each individual offices is that it just gives so much level of intellectuality. They're all joining together, they're all learning from each other and with the ultimate benefit from the client.
So Trevor, that sounds like a very modern, integrated I guess, professional services practice. Is that the right term?
Yeah, the general feedback from my clients that I see is they love it. It's like a one-stop shop, basically. They come in, they get accounting advice, and I might ask something legal or something financial planning, and I'll go, look, just wait a minute, I'll get Max. I'm based in Liverpool. I'll get Max to come and give you advice. So, the clients love it because it's easy for them. They don't have to shop around and find the right one, someone that they can trust. It's all coming from me, basically, and they just appreciate what we do and the one-stop shop that we have.
Yeah, and I sort of appreciate that ecosystem effect, and that is, as someone who's had many advisors in different sort of forms over many years, actually having connected advice. So people who actually know how each other work, rather than trying to cultivate a new relationship or a new culture between two advisors. If they already have a pre-existing cadence and understanding of respect for each other's professional skills, that can be a great enabler for someone who's a consumer of advice, Trevor.
Absolutely. It's like a chain reaction. I trust my accountant. My accountant has referred the financial planner over to me or the legal person over to me. I should trust them because I've trusted Trevor. And that leads into the recommendation that I give
you guys are the trusted advisor. That's what they call it. That's what they call it. So if I met you at a barbecue and I said, "What do you do, Trevor?" What would you say? Would you say you're an accountant?
Well, first thing I'll ask is there any tomato sauce for it? I would say I'm an accountant, but we do have other services that can assist you in your journey into what you want to achieve.
And Munzurul, you're a die-hard accountant. You're always an accountant.
It is, and we sort of say that whether we sometimes people use the modern accountant, sometimes people use the strategic accountant, sometimes people use the lifelong accountant. Right? A fundamental thing what we have is that whenever a new client comes in, is that we always sort of ask the question that how do I service this particular client for next 30 years? That's the parameter that we ask that question to us on an ongoing basis. All on a sudden is that if I start looking through and saying that how do I service 30 years, effectively goes from me to even to the next generation within that 30 years. All on a sudden our mind starts to think very long term, and our minds start to think saying that we can't afford to do anything silly. It's a straight bet as it is, doing all the right thing. Also with the service side of it is that while there are 5 services that we have and each office fundamentally has more or less those 5 services, but we're very careful when a particular client comes in and say that, well, do you have a relationship with an existing mortgage broker? Do you have a relationship with the existing lawyer? Do you have a relationship of this? And if they have a good relationship with someone and they're very comfortable, we work with those people. Because the abundance is very important to us, right? Is that we say that opportunities are there. As long as we can purely contribute to our client to the very best that we can, things works out.
Yeah, and what Munzurul talks to there, I can absolutely quantify because I have different advisors I use for different things, and you've engaged them and worked with them over many years, and it works really well. And me personally, I quite like that. As someone who I'm quite considered in who I choose to use for advice on professional services matters, and I like the idea that you're able to embrace other people. You work with my mortgage broker as required. That doesn't sit inside of the KHI network. I have other advisors who you work with really effectively on my wealth creation stuff, and that works well. So that's an important point for when you're choosing financial advisors. You need to be absolutely comfortable with them. You've got to be able to trust them wholeheartedly, and you've got to be ready to bear yourself completely for a financial advisor, particularly accountant and other sort of associated professionals, because if they don't know everything about you, they're not able to provide you the best advice. And you must see it all the time now, Trevor. People still try and hide things from you. They don't tell you. So, it doesn't help you provide the advice that people need sometimes.
It just depends on the clients. I mean, unless they're in trouble, generally you've just got to dig a little bit further and say, look, what haven't you told me? But in saying what Munzurul is saying is we offer a choice to our clients. Yep. And I look after legal practitioners and mortgage brokers, and they do their own thing. That's fine, as long as we provide a choice. And wherever they're comfortable with, that's what we can offer to them.
Yeah, and you guys are growing rapidly. I've been super impressed by the speed of growth of KHI Partners. What do you think's been driving that, Munzurul?
I think it's, our whole business when we started, the practice we started, right? As an accountant, we always advise everyone to start with a business plan, start with a long-term plan, start with your exit plan, do the cash flow analysis and do all the sort of the due diligence and sort of contingency, all the rest of it, right? And I explored all of those in day one, but then I sort of say, you know what, I do want to start with an ethical plan as opposed to a business plan. And that was back 16 years ago. And I still remember that I sat down and I said that, well, what is an ethical plan for us, right? I didn't have any ethical plan, right?
Did you actually call it that when you
I was like, I want to start with an ethical plan. And then I was like, I don't even know what ethical plan. What is an ethical plan, right?
I can verify that. Yeah.
And I sat down and explore what's an ethical plan. And our ethical plan, believe it or not, is just only one sentence. And that one phrase that we say over and over is the theme of contributing to your life. And then rather than worrying about the fees, rather than worrying about the cents and the pennies, if we just purely sort of sit down and say that, how do I help you? How do I absolutely, genuinely, to the best of my abilities to help you? It doesn't mean we know everything. We don't, right? But we can learn. It doesn't mean we never, ever make any errors. At times we do. But we take those errors, right? And we own those errors and we learn from it, right? And as long as we stay brutally truthful of saying, how do I assist you? How do I contribute in your life? It works out. One analogy if I use, and very close to my heart, is that sometimes very often we start our business with families and friends and say, nothing wrong, right? When I started is that I said that, you know what, I'm going to go into the open world and I'm going to start completely on the open world, see whether it works, right? And if it doesn't work, one goes back to employment. And I look back now after 16 years and I say that most, if not pretty much all of my best friends, they were in day one, they were strangers. Day two, they became our clients from a whole bunch of reasons. Then some of them became really good clients. Some of them became really, really good clients. And some of those clients become friends. Some of the clients become really good friends. And some of those friends are my best friends. And that, when I sort of look back to some of those people, is that I look back and I say, yeah, that's sort of what we quantify as a success. If money comes, money goes, and you set aside, right? The success is that you sort of almost quantify in terms of how do you contribute in many ways.
So what I'm hearing is that you set out to build an ethics-based practice, knowing that if you got that right,
it will work.
The outcomes, whether it's commercial or whatever, will follow. And you stayed true to that, Trevor, the whole time.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you start off thinking about the money side, sometimes greed can get the better of you and you can take shortcuts and your business would not survive, would not last long. So if we have the approach where we approach proper partners with values and build on that, success will come and it will last everlasting.
Yeah. And it's what's driving growth.
Absolutely.
Because you're always bringing in new partners. And
like in terms of our website as an example, and that's not a credit, right? But our website is that we literally created that in the last 3 years or maybe 3.5 years ago. Prior to that, we had this really tacky looking Kesha website. Every time I used to go to the website, I was like, oh, good Lord, that just because we never had anyone coming in from that sort of website as such, right? Every one of our clients are sort of word of mouth and people sort of bring in clients and other people do. And we never take that for granted as well, right? That's really important. One of the fundamental things that we remind that to ourselves on an ongoing basis in terms of I suppose, staying true to the humbleness is that we say there is almost a bit of a timing difference. Today's success is because we may have done a couple of things right in the past. So that's also good. We can celebrate that for a moment. It's important. Yeah. Whether we're going to be successful tomorrow or not, it depends on what we're doing it today.
Well, welcome to the 21st century, Munzurul.
I know.
And thanks for coming out of the shadows, as you said before, onto a podcast. But putting ethics first, I think, is the exemplar for how anyone should be building any sort of business. And if you do the right thing, it's the golden rule, right? Do unto others as others expect unto you. And people might think that's an antiquated frame or term of reference, but it's absolutely critical because if you do it right, and to the point that the accountant, and I guess you were born out of an accounting practice and you've grown into a facilitated professional advice practice, you are the trusted advisor. And I only need to think back to the COVID years and And accountants were the doctors and nurses for Australian business. In many ways, they helped steer Australia through, Australian business at least, through the COVID pandemic, because when COVID hit, most people, the first person they called was their accountant and said, what does this mean and what do I need to do?
Yeah.
It was halcyon days for accounting, and I think it really affirmed itself, particularly in industry sector that was going from being very compliance and tax return orientated to what I think your firm is today, and that is a holistic advice practice. It offers advice within the appropriate means and rules governed by the different regulatory bodies, and it was very much the making of the accounting sector, and I think firms like yours are, the exemplar now of how it should be done, but. It goes back to where it all began. What was Munzurul like 16 years ago? Did he look the same? Did he sound the same? Did he
God, remember that we mates. Remember that we mates.
It's a while back, and I'm relying on memory here. We were friends, but we weren't as close, Phil.
Yeah.
I knew Munzurul was interested in properties, and I think I called him out once where he's supposed to work, but he was like Googling rental properties and how to purchase and all that stuff. Yeah. But he was a good person. Yes. What I like about Munzurul, he's very righteous, he's very good and very ethical at the same time. Even though we weren't close, we grew closer together throughout the years.
Yeah, well, it's a very close relationship, right? How many hours have you spent together? You've probably seen each other as much as you've seen your families.
No. That's a misconception. We share separate offices for a reason. Even though we share the same value, our way that we operate are totally different.
And it works really well, because one of the things which we really cultivate within ourselves is the individuality, right? It's the entrepreneurship, and the entrepreneurship comes in terms of nurturing and encouraging the individuality, right? Each partner is different on their own way, and we celebrate that, right? And Trevor, as an example, and I said that in the open world, is a man that I seek a lot of counsel, right? Very often that if this happens, that happens, you need to bounce it off, right? He'll be the first person that I sort of call. I trust him. Trevor was the executor of our own estate when our kids were below the age of 18. And being the sole executor of our estate when our kids were below the age of 18, one cannot trust another person anymore, because I know what that means. If things were to go wrong, this man would have all the assets. Right?
Thank God the kids have got 18. I don't need to be executed anymore.
I'd hate to unravel your estate, Munzurul. I think you need to be a pretty good accountant, I would imagine. But I think it's testament to the trust and respect that you have each other. And it's very important to have value alignment in everything you do in life, whether it's your marriage or the relationships that you have, whether it's your business partnership, whether it's a relationship you have with your kids, or how you engage and connect with friends. You absolutely need to have value alignment.
Absolutely.
And that's just as important in the value alignment you need to have as someone that consumes financial advice, guys like myself. And I've always found, Munzurul, that we had a value alignment from the very first day that we met, and I've really enjoyed it. And I know a lot of the work that you do outside of accounting, and we'll chat about that over as we get and as our listeners get to know you a little bit more. I remember once upon a time going to you understanding my academic background when you had the global expert in microfinance coming out to Australia, and I remember having those discussions with you over the time. So I've always been intrigued, and I hope to uncover more about you, Trevor, through this, but I've always been intrigued with the depth and expansiveness of your not only professional capabilities, but as someone that actually cares a lot as well. And to me, that comes back to value alignment as well. So, you need to have that in your accountant. So, I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not going to sack you at any point soon.
Love it.
Which is good.
and see, where we take the privilege is yourself as an example, right? Like you can have any accountant in the world, right? Any accountant that you go to Australia, they would love to service you in so many ways, right? And we take that as a lot of pride, right? In a humble way, but we still take that with a lot of pride, and probably the privilege is the word.
Yeah, and you want your accountant to like doing business with you. No, I know, and sometimes you need to be, but it's about value alignment. But all I would say it is, Munzurul. I don't want to speak about Munzurul, by the way, Trevor. I just know him better. I just know him better than you at the moment. But these are very important themes. It's about trust.
Yeah.
And it's about permission.
Yeah.
And by that I mean I trust Munzurul as my accountant, and as I would expect anyone with their accountant or financial advisor, I trust you to give you permission to give me a hard time when required. I trust you for you to help me keep accountable to the goals and the objectives that I have. And you need trust in a relationship on that basis in order to have a very functional and productive relationship with any financial advisor. And by that I mean you'll give me a hard time. You say, Phil, you said you'd get that done. You haven't got it done. This is now an issue or a problem. You've got to get this sorted out. Or Phil, you said that, we're going down a pathway of some sort of acquisition or some sort of strategic outcome or tactical outcome, and you haven't done it. What's going on, mate? You do it well.
No, thank you.
And I know, Trevor, on your client base should be exactly the same, and I would hope that all accounts are like that. But what I want to extract from this podcast in the balance is that there's an expectation that your financial advisor is doing, or your accountant, or whoever it is doing the right thing for you, but you need to give them permission to hold you accountable to do it. And that's a mindset thing. And you've worked with, as you have, Trevor, with probably hundreds, if not thousands of investors. And I would imagine that is the one thing that makes all the difference of whether people are a little bit successful, not successful, or very successful is mindset.
Yeah. And Phil, when you are genuine in your mind and you're very clear in your mind, then you can challenge some of those things, right? Because there is no sort of, I suppose, the ultimate ulterior motive, so to speak, right? And you challenge it genuinely. And when you challenge is that you sort of say to the client is that you don't need to accept this, right? But my role is to raise this as it is with the different circumstances. Now, what we also do is within the group, we sort of say that any client who sort of comes in is that everything is our responsibility. So if a particular tax return is sort of getting a bit late, if this happens, that happens, we actually take it personally. We say that it's our responsibility. We assume that the client would be busy. We assume that the client would be a whole lot of things, but how do we make ourselves take that responsibility and keep clients safe?
He doesn't rule with an iron fist all the time. But you must have the same relationship with your clients.
I do. I think trust is fundamental in the accounting business. Yeah. If the clients don't trust you fully, we're not perfect. We do make mistakes, but we own up to our mistakes and we try to rectify our mistakes. Trust is important and fundamental to any accounting business that I see. Yeah.
Now, I don't want to cause you guys problems, and I know I've been protecting you for many years. And whenever I have you on a podcast, Munzurul, I know you get bombarded with a lot of people going, no, Munzurul's my account, you can't have him, to be fair. But what I really want to highlight, though, there is a depth to KHI Partners.
Absolutely.
Very capable partners in multiple different offices right across Australia who are servicing people. So you can contact the team at KHI. It's hello@khipartners.com.au. A number of these different partners and other professionals we're going to have on this podcast over the coming 11 more parts of this series, and we're going to chat to them and see what they're doing and interrogate them about all these different areas where hopefully as my role here is to help people be better informed so they can make more informed investment decisions. We'll talk about financial planning. We'll talk about conveyancing. We'll talk about finance. We'll talk specifically around accounting structures and how you go about making those decisions. And if you're tuning into this on the Property Investment Podcast Network, I'd say it's a pretty sophisticated audience. So we'll keep our conversations so we can cater for those people who maybe like me, who are probably going to ask more interrogating questions and be a little bit more advanced in our understanding of how things work. But what I am conscious also is that the KHI Partner Network is a lot larger than I thought it was before we caught up a little bit earlier today. There's thousands of people inside of the KHI network who might not even know what and who and what KHI Partners does. So for many of them, it might be, wow, I didn't know that. So you're happy to chat with existing customers as well if they want to do more, Munzurul?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. A couple of points in here. I want to say that with the accounting side of it as an example, right, like you've seen me so far, of course, Trevor is with us now, and we've got a whole depth of accounting partners behind us. And if we look through technical side of it, PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, and a couple of other larger practice, right? They're sort of all sort of there, and they're all very, very capable individual, right? And they're all also property investors as well in different shape or form, right? We've got this young accountant in our partner, Stephanie, and Steph does quite a few things for you.
She does,
and you know,
she at a tactical level is a real asset to me.
She's got quite
good.
a few investment properties on her own,
Yeah.
right? So if one day we speak to Steph, is that she's done few properties on her own, and she's set up her own trust. She's just recently set up her self-managed superannuation fund. So she's way into the pathway. So that's an important point to us, right? Is that what we communicate to our clients is what we live and breathe on a day in, day out basis from us.
So I'm really excited about this, gents. In the balance, I think it's right. You know, it's and I don't think it's really been done before, maybe in Australia, where we've had some bean counters, and that's a term of endearment to you accounting folk who are very good practitioners in the realms and the profession of tax and compliance and everything around it. And you know, you guys are you're a CA, you CA or CPA?
I'm a CA. CA. And Trevor is both.
I'm
CA.
both.
Oh, you're both. Of course, you see. Look,
It's the wise one.
when are you going to be both?
I'm just CA. He's a CA and CPA.
So obviously you have the right academic qualifications, but
Yes.
the mind boggles sometimes when I speak to property investors, and you know, listen to this on the property investment podcast, that we're going to have a theme towards property in this, but we don't want to be biased to only property as an asset class for wealth creation.
Sure.
We'll cover all that off. Where a lot of people use accountants who aren't property investors or don't own investment property, and I sometimes sit there just going, yeah, I don't know about that. You know, you want. I think the intimate understanding that you have around property investment means that. You've got a different lens in which you can view it, and that's an enabler for me as someone that invests in a lot of property. But you guys are property investors. We're going to talk about property. Well, I've got you here, and I've only got a couple more minutes, Munzurul.
Sure.
You don't provide advice.
No.
And we're not providing any advice whatsoever. And these are just three people having a chat around sort
That's
of
right.
discussion points and
That's
themes
right.
in accounting. But
That's right.
is it a good time to buy property, Munzurul?
I say that it's always a good time to buy property if it suits your personal circumstances, right?
Yeah.
And your circumstances is that what your goals, what your objectives are, and where you stand, whether the bank is going to lend you the funding, and how does that work in the longer period of time, right? This is August, September now, 2024, and we've sort of been hearing all this sort of thing with the interest rate side of it, whether the interest rate is going to drop, whether the inflation, you know, it's getting bit managed, but is it really getting managed because the government is providing a whole lot of incentive? After the incentive, is it going to go up again, and is it going to drop in November, December? Probably not. Is it going to drop in January, February? What do we hear that by next year, whether it's going to be 1% below or so? The fact is, we don't know, right? I mean, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of decision, and the fact is, it's a bit of a butterfly effect, right? So we can sort of make as much best predictive analysis as we can, but based on the circumstances, how it change is that things will change. So that's important to me in the sense that while we are aware of the macro, so to speak, but in terms of whether we're going to buy properties or not, it all comes back to your individual circumstances, right? And it's the mindset of looking into the longer period of time. See, all those things which I spoke is that really just about 12 months or less. But your one's investment should be considered over a lifespan, right? It should be considered over 15 years. It should be considered over 20 years. And the beauty of it is that it all balances out over a period of time. So it's the action taking.
It's always in the balance, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with Munzurul. My general advice is don't try to time the market. We don't have a crystal ball. It's if you can afford to get in, consider getting in. Don't time the market.
I completely agree with you, Trevor. I sort of live my life with the mantra, or maybe you call it a doctrine of imperfect action always trumps perfect inaction. And I think that's really just catering for sometimes my lack of planning. But that's the way I like to roll. You know, I, in the balance of things, I'll go, okay, it might not be perfect, but it's right. And I can make those decisions because of all the things I spoke about beforehand around being able to surround myself with those people to support with that. So really excited about it. Contact the team over at KHI Partners, and knowing Munzurul, he'll probably get these emails himself because I know he likes to keep an eye on hello at khipartners.com.au. Across all those different areas, I know I use a number of different people in your firm. I've
Thank
used
you.
them over the years, whether it's the legal side of things. I don't use your mortgage broking, Munzurul, because
And I'm a big fan of
I have
Eva.
my own accountant.
And
I have my own broker.
And I'm a really big fan of Eva and Rebecca and the group, and I learn from her all the time.
But look, if you want, and you guys are just happy if someone just goes, oh look, this is my situation. I'm thinking about,
Sure.
like, is there any way you can help me out with this stuff, or I'm thinking about changing accountants, or hey, I'm been using you for bookkeeping service. I didn't know. You just happy to have a yarn with people? Is
Yeah,
that,
we
is that
do,
how it
mind.
works?
We do, mind. If there's any level of that sort of phone calls or sort of email, and so what we do is that we organise a first meeting, which is always an obligation free. And in the first meeting, we go through a 3-step process. So step 1 is to get to know you. So in terms of your assets and liabilities and where you are, so all the factual things, right? Principal, place of residence, investment property, cash in hand, super fund balance, shares, managed funds, all factual. And step number 2 is that we ask the clients is that, what do you wish to do? And the client says, I want to do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So step 3 is that we sort of come back saying, all right, this is where you are. That's what you wish to do. Let's identify some of the gaps. What are the gaps, right? Everything is factual, and we sort of identify all of those gaps. And as much as we can is that we try to give away absolutely unconditionally in the first meeting. We leave the first meeting as an obligation free. And in the obligation free, our objective is that when we give away everything in the first meeting, there are clients who take away, prospective clients who take away all of this information they may or may not be and come back to us. And we respect that, right? And many people, they come back, right? And when they do, we sort of say that's their fixed price, and we stay with the fixed price, and we concentrate on the service.
Rates. I don't know how many times I've told you not charging me enough. but what I would say on air, actively, I've family members and friends, I've referred them over to you, and I've been nothing but happy with the advice that they've been given from you. And a lot of that, I think, comes back to my point, or the discussion point we had around value alignment. And it works for us, and you know that works for a lot of people. So you can go and check these guys out. You can even just go to the website, khipartners.com.au. So we've got a series of 12 podcasts. This is number 1 with the crew over at KHI Partners, kicking off the 2 founding partners. The momentous day. You know, your first podcast, Trevor.
It is.
How's it going, mate?
I'm enjoying it.
It's all good?
Yeah, I'll be back
I've
next
never
time.
seen him agreeing with me in so many things. In the real world, it's very opposite.
Well, this is the way it works. But that's Trevor Howe and Munzurul Khan. If you're old-fashioned, which is what I would probably do, and give them a call, 02 9633 5511, and they're all over Sydney and also up in Brisbane.
That's right. We've got 2 in Gold Coast.
I like to come to your office. That's what I like to do. But anyway, but this is In the Balance. There's going to be a whole bunch more podcasts around this. Tell your friends if you like it. Like it, 5-star it, whatever you do on the podcast platforms, and we'll see you again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.